Hello there, Razzle48 here, bringing you my Zefra FTK deck profile. I took this to Jacksonville Regionals last weekend, and this is the part where I would say that I topped with it, but Top Cut was definitely top 16, and I definitely got 17th place, so rip that, cannot put top regionals in the title. But if you've heard about the Zefra FTK on Zodiac Duelist, on Facebook, streamers have been talking about Gellenduo. That is because of me, that is because of this deck. And there's probably, I got interviewed by Pro Play Games. They're going to have a much shorter video up on their channel here shortly. But this will be a much longer, much more in-depth deck profile and explanation of things. I'm going to give you the deck profile, explain the choices for building the deck that I made. And also, at the end, I'm going to explain to you, you know, one of the many ways that you can do the FTK in this deck, because it's very consistent, it's very optimal. You can do it any of a ton of ways, but anyway, we'll get to that here in a bit. So let's start with the deck choices themselves. We got 3 Zefra. This comes as no surprise to literally anybody. This is basically Zefra Monkey Board. For all of those of you who are here for the first time, this lets you change him to a scale 7 and to get access to either Windy or Secret, your Psychic, or a level 6 that also searches. You need... There's very few instances where you do the FTK without using this card 2+ in some form or another. We're running Triple Secret. This is your Searcher. This is also rank 6 material. This is the card that you're going to be searching with Zefra. 80% of the time, there is that small percent of the time you search Windy, but most of the time you're going to want to use this. This can search Windy himself because you search Providence, and then you search Windy with Providence. You make Beatrice with this very often. You can also make defensive options, but we'll talk a bit more about that in the extra deck. That dude's your Searcher. He can search your cards that search and basically get you to any monster in the deck. Now on to the Zefra 1-ofs. We're playing 1 Windy. Windy is very essential to this deck, but any more than one of her is just unnecessary because of how searchable she is. You don't really want monsters in your hand often that are not level 6s or that are like engine pieces to help get you to Electromite without normal summoning. And most of the time, Windy is the one you're going to want to search to normal summon because she helps you get resources from the extra deck to your hand in order to pendulum summon all of the things that you need in order to do the FTK. So just know that just because I'm only running 1 does not mean that she's not essential. She's very essential to the FTK, but you do not need more than 1 of her. Same with Plika. This is the one that Monster Reborns a Zefra from the graveyard. That's usually a late game play, though. I don't do that very often. This is more a target for E-Teleport. This, you use this if Windy is for some reason unavailable, or if you need to get a 1-scale Psychic for some reason. There are, like, weird instances this, but mostly E-Teleport gets Windy out to help you make Summon Sorceress or Electromite. Because you do not want to summon Windy with Summon Source with E-Teleport, because then you cannot pendulum summon Windy back, and you kind of need to. And neither of these monsters get their effects when you summon them off E-Tele, which is unfortunate, but this is how it is. 1 Treasure. This is not essential for the FTK. You basically use Treasure to make Metaphys Horus for going second. So this is a going second card. You can normal summon it to make Electromite if you get like a less than adequate hand, if you absolutely need to. It's just a generic pendulum monster. This is mostly just in here to do synchro summons if you do not go first. You know, for when you lose the die rolls. Same with Thubin. This card just outs things if you go second. This is the card that you use to, like, pop problematic stuff like Vanity's Fiend. You know, just other generic floodgates Thubin can get rid of if you go second. You don't really use him for much else. You basically just use them to out stuff. You side this card out all the time. Like, if you're going first, you side this card out. If you're going second, you usually side this card out. Unless they're running a deck where you, like, want to pop stuff. But, you know, stuff. You know, targeting destruction, not the best form of removal in the current metagame. We're running Triple Cerberus. This card is great for going both first and second. It helps you get to Electromite without pendulum summoning or normal summoning. It also helps you out things. We are running the 2 Jackal King as well. These are just the correct numbers. Jackal King helps you set up negates on your board if you cannot get to the FTK, or if your FTK gets interrupted, then you can shift your strategy in order to set up 2 or 3 negates on your board, and Jackal definitely helps with that. Cerberus helps out problematic monsters like Thunder Dragons going second, and they have to like waste their resources to get rid of it so their Thunder Dragons do not get banished, and then most of the time you just Metaphorus it. We're running triple Chronograph Sorcerer and the 1 bad card. This is also very essential. Chronograph. This is just another way to make Electromite prior to without normaling or pendulum summoning. Chronograph also helps you like special stuff out of your hand. Also, like Chronograph is something that you could like summon post pendulum summoning by using Electromite's effect. Like if, for example, you only have 1 thing in your hand and 3 things in your extra deck, one of them being this, then you can pendulum summon the 3 and then use Electromite effect, blow something up, grab this. This is also very useful for getting Gammas out of your hand and onto the board, and if you get Gamma onto your board, it does help with the FTK as well. Chronograph, just all around a really good card to open and draw. The fact that it's scale 8 is also great, which means that if for some reason you cannot get to Zefra, it can act as your high scale pendulum summon, and then you can use its effect to summon the bad card out of your deck. We're running 1 of the Donut and 2 Darkworm. In my previous Zefra builds, I was only running 1 Darkworm, but now, if you cannot send Darkworm with Dragon Shrine, then Shrine is absolutely useless, because sending Destrudo with Dragon Shrine does not help with the FTK at all. So basically, if you cannot send Darkworm with Shrine, then your Shrine's basically a dead card, which means that even if you open a Darkworm and a Shrine, that's still good. You still want to send the other Darkworm and then normal the 1 from your hand. Also, this card's essential. The main reason for this is because you need to get to this card to do the FTK in some form or fashion. If you cannot get to Darkworm, then this is the card you're going to have to search through Electromite's effects. Darkworm is a very, very crucial part of the deck. We are running the 1 Destrudo. Destrudo used to be like something that you might want to send with Dragon Shrine, but not anymore. In this build, you're 100% of the time going to be sending this to the graveyard with Beatrice. If you draw it, if you, like, for some reason have to send it off Shrine, it just doesn't do you any good unless you're, like, in a very poor situation and have to, like, deviate from your main strategy. Drawing it in your hand isn't the worst thing ever. It doesn't, like, stop you from being able to play. It's just 1 less card to help you get there. Because in FTK routes, you get Destrudo in the graveyard normally anyway. We are running the boy. This is the card you've heard all the hype about. This is Gellenduo. Mine is a misprint Italian. There's no name box. I don't mind bragging about it because I like bragging about it. This is basically something you summon to your opponent's field with Summon Sorceress in order to make the FTK happen. This is the card that makes the FTK happen. Basically, what this does is it cannot be destroyed by battle, and if you take damage, then it kills itself. It's a mandatory effect activation. It cannot miss timing. There's also another effect where it can be treated as 2 tributes for the summon of a light monster, but that's never, ever going to come up. I think now that I think about it, you may be able to tribute this thing for Cerberus, but that's literally never going to come up. This is the thing that you summon to the opponent's board, makes the FTK possible. We're running the Gamma engine. Gamma is the absolute best hand trap for this deck, no questions asked. You can summon it off E-Telly. If you resolve this, then you basically have 2 of the pieces that you need for the FTK right there. A Psychic and a level 6. Drawing Driver's not even bad in this deck because Pendulum Summoning Driver is easy with Zefra plus Gate 0 and also helps you get to the FTK. It can function as a level 6 or as a Psychic. Gammas can also be summoned out of your hand with Chronograph as previously stated if you do not use them. And, you know, in addition to, like, this card can out-droll. If they try to droll you, will out-ash if they try to ash you. If they try to Ogre Zefrath, which is probably the correct way to use Ogre against this deck, honestly. People like to save it for Electromite, but honestly, hitting Zefrath hurts a lot more. The only problem with that is that we are running Gamma for this. Yeah, Gamma's just, it's also great going second because it's probably the best hand trap to have going second in the game right now. It negates and destroys monster effects. It can stop like a Sold. It can stop like a Candina for the stray trick stars. It can stop Summon Sword. It can stop, like, you know, all the good stuff. Like, doesn't do much against Thunder Dragons. Probably going to side it out against them. But otherwise, this card is just all around great for the deck. We are running Triple Oracle. This card, it's just generic Searcher, search Zefra, search Windy, search Secret, search whatever you need. Also, the fact that it's a field spell is great because you can pop it with Electromite if you just don't have the resources to pop anything else, which happens a lot more often than you think. A lot more often, it's just, like, essential to just not lose your scales. And just sacrifice that +1 that you would get from Electromite if you popped a scale, and just go ahead and pop the field spell instead. Also, sometimes you want to be careful with that Electromite draw effect anyway, because if you draw into Gellenduo, then you cannot do the FTK. If it's in your hand, you just cannot do it. So it's like, if you have the resources to FTK, you actually do not want to draw any more cards. So popping Oracle is a lot of times just the safest and best overall play. We have Triple Providence. This is the exact same. It can search Secret, Zefra, Windy. It can also search Oracle. So if you need something to pop, but you then you can search Oracle and then use Oracle to search whatever else you need. So yeah, this just gets you to all the pieces that you need to do the FTK. Triple Shrine and the One Foolish, because sending Dark Worm is probably the absolute best thing that you can do in this deck. It gets you to gate 0, which you need, and it gets something on the field to make Electromite with, which just helps. It cannot be described how much that helps. We're running the One Upstart for consistency. Also, it doesn't matter how many life points your opponent has, so even if they call time in the round after you use Upstart, you can obviously still kill them if you get the stuff to FTK them. And for the 40th card, we're running Emergency Teleport. E-Tele is great. You can use it to summon Windy or Plica, which can help with making Sorceress or Electromite. You can also summon Gamma. You know, just saying you can. Like, you can make Metaphys Horse with Gamma plus Thubin. I mean, if you need to, but most of the time this is made, this helps you make Electromite or Sorceress. And that's it for the main deck. You'll, other comments, there is no Exciton, just popping back row just is not something I need to run a card in main deck for, even if it is just a normal summonable monster. Let's see, what else? Also, I debated running Dragon's Ravine and Terraformings and a set rotation, but that's just like, I just don't have room, and you just do not want to be discarding anything in this deck for like any reason, unless you like draw Destrudo, but you don't want to draw Destrudo anyway, and that's just makes Dragons, or I guess you could pitch Dark Worm if you draw it, but that just makes Dragon's Ravine free. But yeah, unless you get like Plica, which is not something that you should be aiming to do because it doesn't help you all that much. You do not have the resources in this deck to be discarding for Dragon's Ravine. Also, Gamma, it's just having this card in just helps so much better, and these would be the stuff that you would take out for Ravine if you wanted to just do like all gas, no brakes build of the deck. Yeah, so that's the deck. No Exciton, no Ravine, no Terraforming, no set rotation. Now, let's move on to the extra deck. We are running the Vortex. This is to set up a board of negates. If you cannot make it to the FTK, which happens often. Some of the smarter, quote-unquote, higher-level players think that it's a good idea to save their Ash for your Sorceress, but that's not actually a good idea at all, because at that point you have the resources to set up multiple negates. If you see that your Sorceress gets ashed, then instead of going into Red Ice Flare, you can go into the Absolute Dragon and make Vortex and just set up a board of negates instead. It hurts a lot more if you get ashed early on than if they like hold it like most good players think that they should. But this helps you set up boards of negates. It also helps you out things. The bounce effect is good. I went into it a couple times at the at the regional. Definitely helped. Metaphys, I will never take this card out of my deck, no matter what. This card permanently negates things on the field without destroying them. This steals your opponent's monsters. This is great for outing Thunder Dragons. If you just drop this and they have to give you the mistake Thunder Dragon, then for one, you clear their board, and for two, now they can't search. It's just great. This card should never be taken out for any reason. It's probably the greatest going second option that Zefras have access to. But I am also running Moonlight Rose because I am running Destrudo. This is my going second out to Thunder Dragons. Yes, Metaphys is strictly better, but Metaphys is also a lot harder to make. With Moonlight Rose, you just summon anything, and then you get Destrudo in the graveyard, which, by the number of things that can pitch it, seems relatively easy, and you can just use this to, like, out Thunder Dragons. It just helps with that. This would be the first card that I took out if I did want to take out something in the extra deck. Options for what you might want to replace it with is Lanphalinkus, to have another Link 2 in your deck besides the Electromite, to help you make some Pendulum plays in turn like 3 or 4 or 5, just if your Electromite dies and you have the resources to make it and want to make some Pendulum plays. You can also replace this with Dragster. I took Dragster out of my deck. Dragster's a great card for to set up negates going first, but the problem with that is that most of the time I go into Meteor Burst for a play that ends in Vortex if I can make Dragster anyway. The only time I would choose Dragster instead is if I just could not get to Gate 0 and cannot do the Vortex play. But Moonlight Rose helps with Thunder Dragons. Meteor Burst, this is essential for the FTK, and this also is a card that helps you get to, that helps you make Vortex. So it helps you make Vortex if you're trying to set up negate board, if your FTK fails, and it also helps you FTK. This is debatably the second most important card in the extra deck next to Electromite. Yazi is untargetable. It's a problem for people. It outs things, and then it summons stuff from your deck afterwards. It's just an all-around good card going second. It's just a great option to have. One of the probably the second best level 7 right next to Meteor Burst, which just you need because FTKs. Running one Beatrice. Beatrice is essential for the FTK. It's also, this is what you pitch Destrudo with in order to either FTK or help you go into any level 7, mainly Meteor Burst. This is what, you get Destrudo in the grave with Beatrice to help you make Meteor Burst. Also, it's a fairy, which is the reason the FTK is possible, is because you can summon Gellenduo pointing to Beatrice with a Sorceress onto their field. Running the Vampire. This card is way too good. I should not be able to make this card. This card just outs things without having to destroy them. This card lets you steal your opponent's stuff, and if you steal something with Metaphys, you can stack it, Metaphys plus what you stole into this dude, and then out multiple more things, maybe steal some more things. This card is just insane. I don't know how more Zefra players just don't run that card. That card's insane. Photon Strike Bouncer. Just a rank 6, a stunny rank 6. It's just a good option to have. I did make it a couple times at the regional when I just had things left over that were not like a Jackal King, which is just strictly better to have. Unlike Norito, this is generic. So it's like negation that you can make with secrets, with Jackal Kings that have no counters, I mean, if you want to. Or chronographs, mainly with secret. You can make Norito with most of the other stuff, but the fact that secret is going to be used for the majority of your rank 6 plays makes this a strictly better option, and it's handy to have. It'll come up. This is just essential for the FTK. You stack this on top of Beatrice and then link away with it just because you need to get a dragon in your graveyard for the FTK to work. It's just an unfortunate necessity. It is funny though. Dropping this on your opponents is probably one of the funniest things when they see you make Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger. It's hilarious. Running Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. This burns them infinitely in the FTK loop. You're probably not going to be making it unless you're FTKing them. Running Absolute Dragon for the already explained plays involving Vortex. And that is it for the XCs. We run Electromite, which is the best card in the extra deck. The limited boy Electromite makes this deck able to play the game. Summon Sorceress. This card is not going to get banned for a while because Europe doesn't have it, which means this FTK, unless they hit Gellenduo, in which I will feel personally very proud. This FTK is going to be around for a while, and this is definitely not the card that's going to be hit if it's stopped. It's a thing. Metaltron, I never made Metaltron in the at the regional. This exists for making Vortex with Absolute Dragon plus Electromite. That is the play. You go into Metaltron every time, making that play, and then you summon Vortex in one of the zones beneath it. This can also be resurrected with Plika. This can also be protected with Providence. It's just like it's not that great of a card by itself, but it's just it's the synergy with the Zefras and the fact that you can just do the Vortex play with this plus, making this with Electromite plus Absolute. It's just the best option for many reasons. It's just great to have. I didn't make it, but I definitely would not take it out. And finally, Agave Dragon. This is the link 4 running. If you make Absolute Dragon and you have Sorceress, you can make Vortex with Absolute plus Summon Sorceress. This is also the card that initiates the FTK with a young 100 damage, and the fact that it's common is great. It just makes my opponents even more salty. If you've bought any packs of Soul Fusion, you likely have one of these lying around. And that's it for the extra deck. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the side deck. It's not as relevant, but I do want to give you an idea of what I was citing and why. We're running triple Ogre. One of them's gold because I'm poor. This is mainly for Gokis. This is also just a good card to side if you just don't know what they're playing, is what I would usually say, but it doesn't work on Thunder Dragons. So side in if you FTK them and don't see what they're playing at your own risk. But this is mostly for Gokis, because if you do not interrupt Gokis' play turn 1 in some form or fashion, you are going to lose the game. And while Gamma is great, you do not always draw it. There was one time in tournaments where I got drolled and I looked down at the driver in my hand and I'm like, that wasn't Gamma. And that has nothing to do with Ogre, but I'm just saying that you do not always get Gamma when you need it. So if you're playing against a deck that you really need to interrupt going first, like this deck for example, then Ogre is a great thing to side in. Yeah, mainly for Gokis though. We have 2 Gamma Seal. This is mainly for Sky Strikers. You just drop it on their on one of their blue chicks, and then it's like their Widow Anchor and all their silly back row just become irrelevant, and then you can FTK them with the Gamma Seal on their board. You can side this against Thunder Dragons. I wouldn't say that that would be incorrect, but it doesn't really help as much as you'd think. Thunder Dragons have just evolved to a point where they make too many things to where one Gamma Seal just doesn't really stop them. This is mainly for, like I said, for Sky Striker decks. If you're gonna want to side something for Thunder Dragons, that tributes over their things, I definitely recommend Lava Golem or Sphere Mode. But the problem with those is they waste your normal summon, and this deck really needs its normal summon. So, Kaijus. We're running 3 Book of Eclipse. I never sided this card, but I definitely would have if I dueled more Thunder Dragons. I think this is the best out to Thunder Dragons, especially for this deck, because unlike the Time Lord, I know that the Time Lord exists. I know that people are hyping it up, saying that it's the best out to Thunder Dragons. Not for this deck, because that thing uses your normal summon and wastes your battle phase and remains on the field, so you cannot make Dark Worm if you use the Time Lord. This does not use your battle phase, which is probably the least relevant thing. You don't really need it. But the main thing is that it does not use your normal summon, which means as long as the zone that Sorceress is going to be pointing to is open, you can just eclipse their field and then FTK them. It's just great. People say the Time Lord's better because it actually gets rid of the things, but in this deck you don't need to get rid of the things. All you need is for that zone across from Sorcerers to be empty, and you can FTK them if you just book their whole field face down. Because that's all you need to do, is just have that one turn. We're playing 3 Trunade! This is for Sky Strikers. This is also for Altergeist. It's not the best against Altergeist. I know they can flip a lot of their things, but Altergeist like to have a lot of other traps in their deck. So it's like basically you use this, they expose what they do have that they can use, and whatever they cannot use goes back to their hand. And a lot of the time, it's a lot easier to play around if you know what they have. The fact that it gets rid of a lot of the other stuff they have is good too. Also, this is just generically good against Sky Strikers. If you just hate Trunade like Sky Strikers back row, they just cannot play the game. You just FTK them through. There was this one time when I was fighting Sky Strikers in regionals where I just Hey Trunade, where I went second, I used Hey Trunade and got rid of all the stuff they could do to stop the FTK and then FTK'd them. It's just a great card to side. I'm running one Divine Strike. This is the only card you side in going first. And this is mainly because if you go first, they're going to side a whole bunch of hand traps, which means there is quite a higher chance that your play is going to be interrupted. And if that happens, then the fact that you're going to need to shift your strategy more to setting up a board of negates is a lot more likely. And therefore, having this in your deck to search off of Secret does help a lot. This did come up in tournament multiple times. I sided this in going first almost every game. It's just a great option to have once they're aware of the FTK and once they put in all their hand traps. It allows you to shift your strategy appropriately to compensate for what they're going to be siding. And finally, triple red reboot for Altergeists. And, you know, if you really think that they're going to be siding those D barriers, you can put this in as well. But this is mostly just for Altergeists. For obvious reasons. It just stops them. You can just kill them. And so, yeah, that's the deck. And I will now show you the one variant. I can't show you all of them because we'd be here forever. One variant of the FTK combo. So let's say that you open Zefra, Windy, and Shrine. And 2 bricks. Like, just theoretically. Just, normal, average hand. So, these 3 are the best cards that you can get for the FTK, just hard drawing raw, because this particular set of cards lets you play through Droll and Lockbird. And, because the only search you're going to need to make with these particular cards is Gate 0. Now, you can do the FTK just as easily with other array of cards. I'm just showing you this one because this is the Droll immune version. Now, before I start, I want to give a huge shout out to the 2 people who made this deck possible, to Colby Potts and his friend Noah. Noah helped me invent the FTK, and Colby did literally all of my testing with me to help me like finalize my deck choices and to like get used to it and to just prepare for playing it in general. I would not have been able to place 17th at the regionals had it not been for both of them. So thanks to you 2 guys. You 2 are great. Now then, let's start with the FTK. So you're going to start off with Dragon Shrine, and you're going to use it, as you may have guessed, to send the Darkworm to the graveyard. My camera is sort of limited in its scope of vision right now, so please forgive me if I have to cram some things together. You're going to use the Darkworm effect and special himself, and on summon, you're going to search the Gate 0. And for this particular set array of cards, this is the only search you're going to need. So if you open Shrine, Windy, Zefra, as I said, and if they draw you now, you're perfectly fine. You're chilling. So you activate Zefra, and you use Zefra effect in order to put Secret in the extra deck. Zefra becomes a scale 7 by this effect. Now you're going to normal summon Windy, and you use Windy's effect to get Secret back to your hand. You're now going to link into the Electromite, and you're using his effect to put a Chronograph Sorcerer into the extra deck. You're then going to go ahead and set the Gate 0, and you're going to go ahead and Pendulum Summon. Let's Pendulum Summon our Secret, our Darkworm, and our Windy. Secret's effect will let you search a thing. If they drolled you, then you obviously will not be able to search a thing. But if they didn't, then you can go ahead and search your Providence or your Oracle. If you used Oracle to get to the Zefra or the Windy earlier in the combo, you're obviously going to search the one that you did not use, just in case something goes wrong, because they are both hard once per turns. Now, you're going to use Electromite's effect, pop Zefra, and add the Chronograph back to your hand. You will then special the Chronograph, and you're going to get to draw a card off of Electromite. Now, I want to point out here that this is the field that you're going to need to do the FTK literally every time post Pendulum Summoning, or post using Chronograph or whatever. You need Electromite, you need any Psychic monster, any monster that can be Destrudoed, and 2 level 6s. This is always the array of things that you're going to need to FTK. If you get these things, then you can do the FTK. You are chilling. You're on the right path. So you're going to link the Sorceress plus the Windy, or excuse me, the Electromite plus the Windy into the Sorceress. You're then going to stack the Secret plus the Chronograph, or whatever level 2, or whatever level 6s you have, into Beatrice. And obviously, depending on which array of cards you opened, you can make a Sorceress with Gamma, or Driver, or Plika plus Electromite. You know, whichever one you want. So, but anyway, you make Beatrice, use Beatrice's effect. I like to detach Secret personally, because you can bring it back with Plika later if things go horribly wrong. You know, just the little things, just to be prepared. You send Destrudo, and now you're going to use Beatrice, or Sorceress on Beatrice, in order to summon the Gellenduo to the opponent's side of the field. And it's very important to note here that Summon Sorceress does negate Gellenduo's effect. Now, you're going to stack the Agave Dragon, the Thunder Charger, onto Beatrice. And this is, I'll explain why this is important in a minute. Now you're going to use Destrudo on the Dark Worm, or whatever extra monster you have. And then, you're going to sink into the Meteor Burst, whose effect you will then use to special the Gate 0. You're going to stack the Gate 0 plus the Meteor Burst into the Red Eyes Flare, who burns them for 500 every time they activate a monster effect. Now you're going to link the Agave Dragon plus the Sorceress into Agave Dragon. And what Agave Dragon does is that for every Whim-type monster in your graveyard, when he's summoned, you gain 400 life points. And since there's Secret in our graveyard, we gain 400. But this is 100% irrelevant. What matters is that for every dragon in our monster, he burns them for 100. And this is why we need to make the Agave Dragon the Thunder Charger, in order to get a dragon in our graveyard, because Destrudo obviously goes to the bottom of the deck when he leaves the field. So, since there is a dragon, Agave Dragon, in our graveyard, he burns you for 100. Now then, this is when the infinite loop starts. Because they took damage, Gellenduo's mandatory effect activation activates, attempting to kill itself. And because it attempts to and because they activate a monster effect, Red Eyes Flare will activate, burning them for 500. Gellenduo will not be destroyed because its effect is negated by Summon Sorcerers. But since they took 500 damage from Red Eyes Flare, Gellenduo will attempt to activate again, and because it activated, Red Eyes Flare will burn them for another 500. And since the activation's negated, Gellenduo won't be destroyed. But since you got burned for another 500, Gellenduo will attempt to destroy itself again. And because of that, you'll get burned for another 500. And at this point, you see where it's going. Once you achieve this point in the game state, it is an infinite loop that will burn them from however much life points they have straight down to 0. Which means that we can play Upstart perfectly safe in this deck without having to worry about time rolls. We can also keep Destrudo in, going game 2 or 3 without having to worry about time rules. And by the way, Agave Dragon is a great card to have for time rules. Just, even if you can't get to the FTK, burning them for 100 is the silliest thing. And I just love how this FTK looks. It's just a common, a ghost rare, and a misprint Italian card. I feel awesome for coming up with this. But, again, shout outs to Colby and Noah for helping me with this, to help me get this deck to where it is today. You guys are great. And for all of you watching, tell me in the comments what you think of this degeneracy. Now that I've finally taken it to an event, I can stop hiding it. I can go to locals again. I can continue playing the game. and I can share it all with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. Utilize this to your fullest advantage at your locals. Make some kids salty. Do it. Make your dreams come true. I'll hope to see you all next time. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell me in the comments what you think. And for now, this is Razzle48 saying goodbye, and I'll see you next time.